All right, Derbyites, I'm Paul Sheehan, executive editor of Gold Derby, and you might think that title means I know something about the Emmys, but I know nothing compared to Riley Chow, one of our contributors, who I just told him he's the Nate Silver of Gold Derby. I mean, this guy knows his stats. He's top-notch at predicting. What was it that Marcus and I spoke to you about? What did you win predicting-wise, Riley, last year? Remember?
It's the Critics' Choice nominations.
Okay. But you do very respectably when it comes to predicting Emmy nominations and winners as well.
I think not as well as you, Paul.
Oh, well, okay, but that's only because I force people like you to tell me what I should be predicting. So one of the things that you do, of the many things you do, like counting up the number of series that are on the ballot of drama and comedy writing and directing and analyzing all that, but you love the Guild Awards. And what kind of correlation is there between the guilds and the TV Academy? I mean, on the motion picture side, where they both follow a calendar year, and the Guild Awards are sort of these vital precursors to figuring out the Oscars. Is it the same story on the TV side?
Yeah, I think the Guild Awards get a bad rap because they take place half a year away from the Emmys. So people say like, oh, how can they possibly influence the Emmys? But I think it's not about influencing. It's just about how you have the same voters voting for both awards. And then you also have movie people mixed in. But like they vote for one thing.
So sorry, just a sec. So at the guilds, and I know that's the case. The Directors Guild is huge, and they even have people that direct the local TV news. So the cinematographers, all of those people will vote for both the film and the TV awards?
Like not all of them, but you do have some voters who are mixed into both categories, kind of like the Oscars. The Oscars are, a very small section from each guild, but then the nominations are pretty consistent. And it's the same thing with TV. It's just that with the TV Guild Awards, then something like Homeland always does better at the guilds than at the Emmys because it airs like right as the guilds are voting. So I find that that's the only effect. But otherwise, like if you look at the Producers Guild Awards, they nominate only 5 comedies and 5 dramas, and it's extremely rare that you ever have something that is not nominated for an Emmy that shows up at PGA. Whereas if you compare like Critics' Choice or the Golden Globes, maybe they'll go like 1 out of 5, as opposed to 4 or 5 out of 5.
So the guild's eligibility is calendar year, right? So
yeah, for the most part. Like there are a couple that use the Emmy calendar year, but
and then
like the PGA, for example, which is why they're so close.
Oh, the PGA uses the Emmy one.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Okay. So we're going to start with on the drama side. So Game of Thrones, how did it do in the most recent round of guilds? I mean, we know it won a record number of Emmys for a drama series last fall. Then, so the guilds come along in January, February. Like, did it do well there?
Oh, for sure. I mean, Game of Thrones got nominated by 14 guilds, got 29 nominations. I think there are only about, 15 guilds or so? So it only missed out on 1, which was consistent with the Emmys, where it was nominated last year in 17 of the 18 categories that it submitted. And then it got the most nominations, 24. So.
Okay, and I'm going to totally put you on the spot, and if you don't know the answer. So what was the one category it got snubbed in at the Emmys?
At the Emmys, it got snubbed in music composition. Because music composition is not something where there's a popular vote. They make each voter, like everybody who submits in the music category has to be a voter, and then they get sent a certain number of episodes that they have to rate on a scale of 5, I think. Okay. So they make sure that everything is seen, which is why it makes sense that it's one category that its popularity would not come through for it.
Oh, and again, this is why I urge anyone, search for Riley Chow on our site and read what he writes, because he knows, I mean, who knew that other than Riley? I mean, and the people in the music branch, and some of the people maybe at the TV Academy, and I bet you only some. So when you're predicting this year's Emmy nominations, you're forecasting a pretty strong showing again for Game of Thrones?
Yeah, I'm trying to position my prediction so that it does better than last year, because it does seem like it has momentum. At the same time, I'm a little skeptical because, I mean, it couldn't win the Screen Actors Guild Award for Best Ensemble, And it took so long for Game of Thrones to get to where it is. Like, I don't know if they can get like 3 directing nominations, even though it shouldn't seem that hard. But like this year, they're submitting more episodes in that category than ever.
No, explain that. I think that was sort of fascinating. The idea, the submissions, and my understanding is so a director is limited to just one. Now, is it just one submission per show or just one submission overall?
I believe it's like the acting categories where they used to limit people to 1 submission per person. But then a few years ago, they said you can submit per multiple shows. The only thing is then they would just have to pay a fee, or maybe their network would submit them. But like, I think they can submit as many times as they want now.
And when you did your really in-depth analysis of the writing and directing ballots on both comedy and drama side, you made note of the fact that sometimes the more submissions from a show, the less likely they are to get nominations, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Emmys really shouldn't work this way, but there is a lot of strategy, and it's fun from our perspective because it seems more like a game. But like, you take Breaking Bad, which couldn't get nominated for writing until its 5th season, even though it had gotten nominated for, everything else pretty consistently until then, just because it submitted, like 9 episodes every year. And unless you've got like a pilot or, I don't know, like a Red Wedding or something, it's hard for votes to like concentrate on a single episode, especially when people don't take advantage of the ballot. Whereas, like, I loved last year on the editing ballot, the Mike episode of Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm.
Like, instead of saying like in this episode Jimmy does whatever and Mike does whatever, it was just 3 words. It said the Mike episode, so people knew to vote for it.
Right. No, explain that to people. So the ballot has an official description, and I think when you wrote a really interesting article about this year's, I think 5 submissions for directing for Game of Thrones, and you referenced the fact these ballot descriptions can be slightly misleading, or not misleading, but not comprehensive enough for the average voter to understand.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, some ballots list names and others don't, so then you kind of see how that plays out. In directing especially, I find that in recent years they've just been really going for whatever the big names are. Maybe it's because there are so many shows that they just vote for what's familiar. But last year, the most acclaimed episode of Game of Thrones was the one with the big battle, which you would think would be the one nominated for directing. But on the ballot, in the episode description, it says, Arya does this, Jon travels, but it doesn't actually say giant battle scene with White Walkers. And then the episode is called Hard Home, which, nobody knows what that is. So that episode got snubbed.
And the director's name, and I've forgotten his name, which tells you,
Sure.
I could be an Emmy voter. What's the director's name?
Yeah, so his name is Miguel Sapochnik, and he's only been directing TV for the last 5 years. So he doesn't have any prior nominations. He doesn't have any name recognition, and nobody even knew what episode he directed from the ballot.
And then now you're concerned about him for this year is kind of that it could be a replay, or a rerun, I guess, if we're talking TV.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else on the directing ballot from Game of Thrones has been nominated for an Emmy before. He's the only newcomer. I like this year, though, his episode title is Battle of the Bastards, so I think that should be pretty clear, but
okay.
I don't know.
And then that's the directing side. Now, I think on the writing side, I mean, Game of Thrones, I think, benefits because the showrunners are so integral to each episode, whether they sort of submit just one, don't they?
Yeah, I think what it is that shows have regular writing staffs, and then they use a lot of guest directors. So when you have a writing staff and they see each other every day, then they say like, okay, can you guys like not submit yourselves for the Emmy? We're just going to do one so we can concentrate our votes. But then if you have guest directors, then like they're free to do whatever they want. So like shows are a lot more strategic on the writing side than the directing side.
Right. And so when it comes to the predicting the nominations, I mean, so how much does, say, the DGA and WGA from 6 months ago play into it, given that they have different eligibility? Like these Game of Thrones episodes right now that just finished airing obviously weren't up for either Guild Award. So you're looking at, does it matter what the guilds did vis-a-vis last year's episodes in terms of trying to figure out what the Emmy voters will do this year?
Well, I think it's just kind of, it's the same voters, it's the same shows. Maybe it's not the exact same episode, but they kind of have the same tastes, right?
But you're expecting then, but Game of Thrones to figure, even if the Battle of the Bastards fellow doesn't get nominated, they're going to get a couple of directing nominations. You'd be surprised if they didn't get a writing nomination, I assume.
For sure. I think one thing to note about this year, though, is last year they were able to walk to a win pretty easily in directing, I think, because everybody loves Game of Thrones. But this year, if they get 2 or 3 episodes nominated, then that's going to create some vote splitting in the second round, because as of this year, the Emmys are no longer doing ranked ballots. They're doing, you just vote for one.
Okay, so it's just you tick one box as opposed to the scorekeeping where you'd end up with piles and counting and all that stuff. I love, because you're our stats guy in terms of the facts, and I love the math of it all. So what other shows are you expecting to do well then on nominations day on the drama side? Like what we're going to hear Game of Thrones a lot. What other shows do you think we'll hear?
I think we'll probably hear House of Cards, but I want to say something about that one, is that last year it was dropped from writing, directing, and editing. And it's pretty hard to get multiple nominations as a series if you don't have like key support. It seemed to me like a pretty clear dismissal or rejection from the various branches. And I wonder if it just got into drama series because, there's so many slots in that category.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, House of Cards it's an older show at this point. It's in its 4th season. So this is about the time where the Emmys might drop it, even if they still like it.
And what did the guilds give you pause though for that? Like, how did it do with the writers, directors, and editing guilds in January and February? Was it nominated?
Like it still got in at the Editors Guild, and it still does well at the Screen Actors Guild. But this year it didn't get a single Writers Guild nomination, because they have categories for episode, they have categories for series, they have new series. So they have a bunch of places where you see shows get in there that actually don't get in at the Emmys.
Okay.
So it seems like it's not on the radar for writing at all. And then it wasn't nominated by the directors branch. And this year they also have kind of unknown directors, and they don't have a clear episode where that directors can congregate it around. So,
and I know it's hard because last year was kind of when they expanded the voting, it became much more a popular vote in terms of I know voters were supposed to attest that they had watched all the episodes and everything, but there was a sense that maybe that's why Game of Thrones won, because it was a more open vote. Historically, so not last year, but just historically, how important has it been for a drama series to win, to have also at least had a nomination, say, for directing, or a nomination for writing, or a nomination for acting? Like, are any of those, had they been absolutely crucial, and which other ones were sort of like nice to have but not necessary?
Yeah, there are a bunch that I think are very crucial. I mean, I forget the exact number, but I think editing, maybe it's been like twice in the last 15 years that a drama has won without it. And I think we see this correlation with the series category, because even though they did submit episodes, the series category, they were never voting for the episode, they were voting for the show as a whole. Right. Plus you had like 10 times as many voters in the series category. So I think that would have skewed it a bit more populist. So yeah, I don't know how much we'll see the winners change in the series category. So I think, these editing, writing nominations are very important.
Okay, also, so right now you've got House of Cards in your mix, but if it doesn't have a directing nomination, or if it didn't have writing, you would be hard pressed to predict it to win, I guess.
For sure, yeah. I think I actually have it in second right now, just because everything's so in flux. But I'm just saying, don't be surprised if it misses out. And I mean, from a critical perspective, like they do their top 10 lists at the end of the year, and then HitFix tallies them up. And out of their 50 critics, not a single one of them listed House of Cards in their top 10. So I mean, there's not necessarily this excitement about the show anymore.
Okay. Now, what about a show I love and was excited about, Downton Abbey, which finished? So how do you feel? How do you think that's going to fare?
Well, Downton Abbey, I think, is in a little bit of trouble because, like I was talking about the Producers Guild earlier, like they nominate Best Drama Series. They use the same eligibility period. So they only nominate 5 instead of 7. So last year, the 2 that they left out were Orange is the New Black and Downton Abbey. So Downton Abbey is toward the bottom of the category, but I think it's pretty safe because shows always get some kind of a boost for being in their final season.
And then what about Orange is the New Black? I mean, that, and I feel for them having to shift genres. I mean, do you think if they were still over in comedy that they'd be a slam dunk for nomination?
Well, why were they in comedy in the first place? But yeah, I do think they'd be a slam dunk. I think it's a lot harder in drama. I'm not sure that any voters actually watched the second season, though, because it was nominated for hardly anything, for one thing. But if you look over at Critics' Choice, you know, they watched it, they snubbed it across the board, except for supporting actress, where they gave Lorraine Toussaint a win.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you had actually watched the show, she would be the thing that you would nominate. But instead, they just carried over, you know, series, Uzo Aduba, casting.
But the screen actors like it. I mean, they love it, right? I mean,
yeah, they do. It is on the comedy side there, so I think it's an easier time.
One thing that frustrates me about the TV Academy, and I've asked, and you know, they don't break down the size of the branches, but I'm guessing if there's any correlation with the Motion Picture Academy, and the actors would be the biggest branch among the 17,000 members.
I believe they're second biggest. Yeah, I haven't seen the exact numbers, but it was either like publicists or producers that actually outnumber them, I read.
Really? Yeah. Oh, okay. See, look, Riley's giving us information I didn't know, that you have some sense of the sizes of the different branches. But so you don't think, like, the actors just, especially because it just streamed its new season on Netflix, it's kind of in the ether. Are you predicting it to get nominated for drama series?
No. I think, you know, maybe the new season came out, but I don't think they watched the last one either. So
okay. So what were they watching instead? So what you've got, House of Cards in there, you've got Downton in there, you got Game of Thrones. So what are your others?
I've got Homeland, which, you know, did fall out, but it did come back at the Producers Guild. So I think that was telling that it was able to, you know, jump over Downton Abbey.
Right.
And then I've got, I don't know if I said Mr. Robot. And how do you feel about Mr. Robot? Because that one's untested.
Well, yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you. You know, let's go back to Homeland just for a sec. So did Homeland do well with the guilds? Is that why it's giving you a little more confidence to put it in? Or I know it's coming off a very well-acclaimed season. So why do you think it's going to kind of make its way back in?
Yeah, Homeland always does well at the guilds, even that year when it was dropped at the Emmys. So that's a little bit concerning. But I don't know, I just feel like there are so many slots this year. And I think like Orange is the New Black will definitely fall out before it.
Well, I think with Mr. Robot, it's one of those shows. I mean, it aired a long time ago relative to the Emmys. I mean, it was last summer. But I think that the network has done a good job of promoting it to Emmy voters this spring. Lots of events, the mailings, you know, putting it out there as sort of promoting the upcoming season. But so it was guild eligible, right, Mr. Robot? I mean, how did it do with the guilds?
Yeah, it was a very mixed bag. I mean, it won the Writers Guild Award for New Series, and it was nominated for Rami Malek, but it wasn't nominated for by any other guilds. Okay. And I mean, people often think that you know, new shows don't do well at the guilds because it takes them a while to catch on. Well, that's actually just SAG, which is the biggest one, so everybody pays attention to it. But the other ones catch on very quickly. Like last year, the Nick, you know, which is a show that like people still don't think is on the Emmy radar, but it did pick up, like 5 nominations last year, and that was well represented in the guilds months before. Or if you go back to other shows that won in their first season, like Homeland or Mad Men, they were nominated by the directors, they were nominated by the editors, cinematographers, sound, or whatever. Whereas Mr. Robot, like, I wonder, will it just get nominations for writing and actor, and that'll be it? I think it's a possibility, even if I'm not predicting it myself.
So were there other new shows then that did better with the guilds that kind of make you think that they could take that slot instead?
Maybe not new shows for this season, but I do have The Nick in there as well, because The Nick is on Cinemax, but I think to Emmy voters, it's just an HBO show, because it's sent inside the HBO package. It's listed alongside all of them. And it looks like an HBO show. It's got, a movie star as its lead. It's got a movie director. It's got high production values. It did very well in the nominations last year. It got a win for production design, got directing nomination. And it did even better at the guilds this year. And it had a more critically acclaimed season. So I think that one's on an upswing. We know they like it already. Yeah, that's what I have there.
Okay, now
we have Underground. Do you want to?
Do I want to defend that?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's. I think in that instance, it's again to the campaigning, the marketing of it. I also think that Emmy voters are aware of Oscars So White, and I wonder if it's a really well-regarded show. It's about an interesting story that most of us don't know a lot about, other than sort of Harriet Tubman, the name, but the Underground Railroad. It's visual, the way it's done, both visually, the soundtrack. It's got an energy to it. But yes, I think I've got it now, but I'm wondering if it's this year's Empire. That was a show everyone was like, a lot of people were talking about, and then when it came to the nominations, what did it get? The lead actress in costumes, maybe, or something. Yeah. So I am hesitant about that. That's why I'm talking to you, Riley, because I need to know what I should have instead. What about Billions? That to me is one. I'm surprised there's not more talk about it, with the pedigree of the behind the scenes, as well as Paul Giamatti, Damian Lewis, the subject matter. Does it seem like it's got a shot at getting a series nomination?
Yeah, I think it could. I think Showtime is one of the networks that the Emmys really pay attention to. It's very rare to find a Showtime show that doesn't get its lead nominated. House of Lies, Shameless, these are not shows that anybody really cares about as far as the Emmys are concerned, but their leads get in every time. Episodes, or even like something that doesn't get into acting, like the Borgias, will still get a directing nomination. I think Showtime always is able to pull something off. So I do have the 3 leads, I guess you want to call Maggie Siff a lead, getting in. But I think the show overall, it just didn't generate a lot of enthusiasm, kind of like Ray Donovan or House of Lies. It's just another one of these shows that Showtime has, and they'll check out, but I don't know if they're passionate about it. And
then a show you're passionate about, give you a chance to make your pitch. We're recording this after voting's ended, but The Leftovers. You and Rob LaCuria, one of our other writers. You two are, have sung its praises for a long time. What are your hope? What's your wildest dream for The Leftovers on Emmy nominations morning?
Wildest dream? Well, get everything, but
okay, you really are wild.
Yeah, I have it for 1 nomination. I think it can get writing, because the writer's branch is often more in line with the critics. They'll nominate shows like The American or The Wire, Buffy the Vampire Slayer that are ignored by all the other branches. And with the writers also, if they miss out on a show at the beginning, they can find it later, which is not the case for other branches. But yeah, The Leftovers, I'd like to predict it for more, but I thought it did really poorly last year. Not only missing the expected drama series and things, but it missed main title design. Come on.
but it's almost like, I mean, like it got a reboot this year. Like it's a different show, isn't it? To some degree. I mean, it's they changed locales, but doesn't it? Did it change its tone? Like I mean, and also I think you've written about it. Rob's written about it. Didn't it do much better in terms of reviews and things? Like, does it not feel like it's on an upswing or?
Yeah, for sure. Like it's very possible. I mean, again, it's HBO, and HBO can get, I think, anything in. You know, they can get Tremaine nominated for a limited series. They can get Big Love nominated when it has 0 other nominations. All this kind of stuff. But I just have The Nick as my surprise HBO nomination instead.
Now, earlier I think you mentioned Better Call Saul. So do you see that coming back?
Yeah, Better Call Saul, I don't know what to think about that one. I mean, if there are 5 slots, I'm not sure if it would get in. 7, I think it's a bit safer. Or maybe even 9 if there's a tie this year.
Right.
But Better Call Saul, I really question how much of its nominations last year was just goodwill from Breaking Bad.
Okay.
And like I don't know how long that can actually last. I mean, it wasn't nominated for casting, even though it was a brand new show, and that's pretty rare. And it wasn't nominated for directing, even though Breaking Bad got nominated for directing pretty much every year. And they had a pilot in contention, and the writers loved that. And I also don't think that the second season generated, like it was about as acclaimed as the first one, but obviously less watched because people left after checking it out for the pilot.
Now, a show that seems to be on the upswing, even though it's older, it's 4 years old, is The Americans. So, and there were expectations for it last year when they expanded the category. And to your point, what I thought was so interesting is because they have this 2% rule. So if a show if the 8th place show was within 2% of 7th, then they'd let it in, right? So it was just, I think I expected the race to have been bigger than it was last year and do this year. But do you not think The Americans is sort of, I mean, it's doing so well this year. The critics really are chiming in about how great it is. It was airing original episodes leading up towards the Emmy voting.
They moved it a lot closer this year to the Emmy voting, which I think was deliberate. The Americans, I mean, I thought it'd get a big showing for its first season because, I mean, I thought they ran a pretty good campaign then, and they had the critical acclaim, and new shows always get a bump. And you have, Kerry Russell, who's like a former star returning to TV. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it just never really took off. And year after year, people predict it for lots of Emmy nominations. They say like, oh, it was more acclaimed than last year. But I guess at some point, maybe there's a line where it finally gets over, but I don't know why that would be this year. I mean, people bring up Friday Night Lights a lot because that was a show that got pretty much ignored until its 4th season, and then it was able to build on that in its 5th season. But I think Friday Night Lights was, they had like a fundamental change in their campaign. I mean, for the first 3 seasons, it was just NBC campaigning it along with their 30 other shows. Right. And I mean, if you look at the NBC like DVD box, you can't imagine that convincing anybody to vote for anything because they're just you've got like 10 shows on a single disc, and it just says the title of the series. It doesn't say what episodes included or anything. So I can see how Friday Night Lights could have slipped through the cracks there. But then for its 4th season, DirecTV took over the Emmy campaign, and it was their only show, so they were able to put all their money toward that, and they're extra motivated because they're trying to make a name for themselves, and they sent out the entire season. Whereas The Americans is running the exact same campaign that it's done for the past 3 seasons, where it sends out most of its season, which I'm not really sure is a good idea either, because then voters are getting all the less good episodes in addition to the great ones. And
do you not think, in a way, I mean, we say some episodes, but why wouldn't you not send all of them? In that, if you like it, you're going to want to watch all of it. I mean, I'm thinking of the Netflix, Amazon models now, where people are so conditioned to at least having the access to, even if they choose not to watch every episode of Bloodline, they're so conditioned to being able to dip in and out of something. So
Yeah, but I mean, there are over 400 shows now, right? So if they send you a DVD of the 4th season, you think like, oh, okay, this is the time to start a show.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
And I mean, and then on like the writing ballot, the one episode they submitted is the finale. So voters will need to, start this show that they've never seen before and then watch the entire season before they feel comfortable maybe voting for it. Yeah.
That makes sense. I'm looking sort of at our Gold Derby list here because you're right, there's just so many shows. And a couple that are sort of bubbling underneath. The Americans actually is in 7th place. Orange is the New Black is in 8th. I don't know what you've been doing, but The Leftovers is in 9th. Yeah. Just to run down the list, it's Game of Thrones 1st, Mr. Robot 2nd, Better Call Saul 3rd, House of Cards 4th, Downton 5th, Homeland, then American. So there's your 7. Then Orange, Leftovers. Now number 10, and this is why I would argue that the Emmys, with so many shows, and here Riley's somebody who goes through the ballot, they should have 10. I mean, we always talk about a top 10 list, the critics' top 10 list. Anyway, number 10 in ours, it's a tie actually between Underground and Outlander. So there's certainly passion for Outlander among the people that watch it. Do you think that's going to translate to any Emmy nominations beyond some of the crafts?
I want to say no. I mean, I was taken aback at the Golden Globes because I thought that was all just the internet, but it did seem to kind of propel it, and it did pick up those nominations there. But again, going back to the guilds, I mean, Outlander got a costume nomination, and then at the guilds they have costume categories for contemporary, period, fantasy, whereas at the Emmys they actually combine miniseries, movies, and series, so there are only 3 slots for drama series. So I don't think it's going to get in there. Maybe it gets score again like it did last year. I want to talk about Underground though. It's fun being up here in Vancouver. Occasionally I get sent like the Emmy mailers. So this year, the 2 that I got were Ash vs. Evil Dead and the WGN set. So does that mean that they're running such a huge campaign that they're just sending it to everybody? Or are they so desperate that they're sending it to, a non-Emmy voter in Canada?
Well, no, they're sending it to Riley Chow from Gold Derby. That's what they're, I mean, they know your name. Last
year the only set that I got was the History Channel one.
Oh, okay. No, I think it's because you write for us. I think and WGN, I think they are sowing the seeds. I mean, they're planning on doing a new series every quarter. I mean, I think that it's an awareness campaign, and if it translates into Emmy nominations, I think that would be great. But they're playing the long game. I'm looking down our list, and I'm curious about a couple of others that are in the second tier. We were talking about Showtime and how well they've done, but The Affair didn't click last year for them with the Emmy voters, and they done well at the Globes and did well again at the Globes. Do you, if we shift away from series and start talking about acting nominations, do you think The Affair will, whether it's Ruth Wilson and or Moira Tierney, do you think that they'll get some nominations?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on over there. I mean, The Affair is another show that just didn't register at all in the Guild Awards. Got no Emmy nominations last year, so I'm just discounting that one. But it is strange because, yeah, all of Showtime's other shows get in somewhere.
Is it sort of what the subject matter, or it's well done? I mean, it's very compelling. Was it a little too confusing for people? I don't know. I can't figure that one out. And then we were talking about Goodbye Hugs. So Downton series, and then what about? Actually, I'm curious about Downton in terms of acting, directing, writing? Do you see any nominations? Do you see any nominations on the acting side for Downton?
Yeah, I think it's going to do pretty well there.
Oh,
Like I have Michelle Dockery coming back, and then I've been wanting to drop. I've been wanting to add, Lady Edith, Laura Carmichael, and I think if she had submitted in supporting, I would have no problem doing that. So I added her last night to my lead predictions. I checked yours to see if you had Taraji P. Henson, and you didn't. So I thought, okay, I can do that too.
so you did? Do you have Michelle Dockery as well as Laura Carmichael? The two of them?
I do, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, and it's so
see.
interesting because I didn't feel like this season was that Michelle Dockery as Mary was that strong. I really thought especially as it sort of moved towards the finale, the focus was much more on Laura Carmichael, and I think that it's interesting. I think that whether or not she gets nominated, I think that from a career point of view, I think it's smart to have been positioned in lead, because she really was, I think, a lead of the series this year, Laura Carmichael, and that she can come off that for whatever she does next, that she was a star of the show. Maggie Smith, do you have her being nominated?
No, I don't have Maggie Smith. I find that often shows they'll nominate the bigger names at the start or the older actors, and then as the show goes on, they kind of drop them and then bring in the people that they actually like. I mean, for the first season of Downton Abbey, they nominated Elizabeth McGovern and Maggie Smith, who are the big names.
Right.
But then, since then, they've decided that their favorites are actually Jim Carter and Michelle Dockery and Joanne Froggatt, I guess.
And so, do you think Jim Carter will be back?
Yeah, Jim Carter will get nominated, after the show's done. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah, really? Next year he'll be on the back. He'll get nominated next year. And then one other, actually two more shows I want to talk to you about, or many more. Actually, I'm looking at this list because you know way too much, Riley. And we're going to talk about comedy in a separate podcast because we're already
getting pretty long.
Yeah, exactly. But interesting. It's a compelling viewing. And speaking of compelling viewing, so people that are passionate, like you are passionate about The Leftovers, there is a core of support for The Good Wife. So where do you see The Good Wife coming out on Emmy nominations day? I mean, is it going to be, is Julianne Margulies going to get nominated?
I don't think so, but The Good Wife, I want to dismiss it just outright because, it's been years since it was nominated. It had a bad season by all accounts, but that nomination for Parks and Recreation last year, I thought came out of nowhere. Right. I mean, Parks and Recreation was always kind of on the radar because it got Amy Poehler nominated. It would get Writers Guild nominations. And that's pretty similar to The Good Wife. They'd get acting nominations, get nominations from the Writers Guild. So I don't know. It could come back.
And how did it do at the most recent guilds?
The most recent guilds, it was dropped from drama series at the Writers Guild, but it still got an episodic nomination. And then Juliana Margulies is hanging on at SAG, so she's in the conversation for sure.
And what about one of our writers, David Buchanan, writes passionately about Christine Baranski? Just give her the Emmy. Do you even think she'll be nominated?
Yeah, she's really surprised me. I thought for sure, she'd get dropped maybe around year 5 or 6 or something, but she's going to get 7 nominations. And I find every year when I watch her episode, I'm consistently underwhelmed. This year, I watched the series finale just because it had so much hype around it, and she does have more to do than usual. I do have the series finale getting in for writing, which they haven't been nominated since the pilot, but it's kind of weird that they get nominated by the Writers Guild every year and they haven't gotten in. I mean, sometimes series finales get a bit more of a boost, so
it's funny, I'm thinking about, because my Emmy memories date back to the 70s, and I think about B. Arthur finally winning for Maude for the last season, or I think Tony Randall had already won, but he won again for The Odd Couple, and then of course it had been canceled and famously said, "Now if I only had a job." So I wonder if Christine Baranski will, again, if it's sort of the awareness that the series is over, she's never won, the goodwill towards her. I mean, she's very well regarded. She you wouldn't be surprised to see her get another guest acting nomination for Big Bang, for instance. You know, it's she's certainly the acting branch likes her. And then in terms of just when I'm looking at this list, and I really, again, why there needs to be 10 nominees, things like Horace and Pete. So this is this Louis C.K. show that was just available online. You had to pay for it. But he's so well regarded. Do you think that that's going to make much of an impression? And certainly the people he's got on it, Steve Buscemi and Edie Falco and Alan Alda. I mean, these are, you know, they have bucket loads of Emmys. And how do you think Horace and Pete will fare?
I think it'll definitely get a writing nomination because that branch loves Louis C.K. And again, they're more in step with the critics, so they'll be able to find it. Mm-hmm. I think it'll get into the multi-camera categories where it's competing against, you know, Two Broke Girls.
Right. I love me some Two Broke Girls. Don't talk to me about, I love Chuck Lorre comedies, so that's just who I am. So.
I just don't know why they have all those like multi-camera cinematography, multi-camera editing. I mean, except for this year when Horace and Pete's there, it's just all CBS shows. You know, like The Millers got nominated last year, even though it was ineligible because it didn't air enough episodes. But anyway.
I think they actually, to be fair to them, I think they streamed them online. They did make them available online. That's how they got around that.
It was, but they aired like after the.
Oh, okay, all right.
Episodes cut off. Yeah,
that's last year. That's last year's story. So with Horace and Pete, you just don't think it's probably on enough people's radar to get like a series nomination, and it was fun, but it was. You never knew how long a episode was going to. I mean, I'm this old kind of guy, so suddenly that was a 33-minute episode. That's a 56-minute episode. It was too confusing to the likes of me.
And even the critics didn't nominate it at the TCA Awards because there's just too many shows. It's just not on enough of their radars. Like they weren't even sent episodes to watch, like as members of the press. So.
Right. And then, I mean, there are a couple of, when I look down this list of the streaming services. I think the strongest possibilities for The Path are probably on the acting side, don't you? This Hulu series, don't you? And one that I know our trusted leader, Tom O'Neill, is passionate about, Bates Motel. Again, that's probably more of a, if it gets in, it's going to be a Vera Farmiga nomination, I would guess. And your Nick, by the way, the Nick is maybe just based on Riley's votes, is at 12-1. I look down this list and I keep thinking, like, there's so many shows. Daniel Montgomery did a wonderful item the other day about, John Adams won a record number of Emmys just a few years ago. Would it do so well now because there's so many limited series and that it may not sort of be able to sweep? If we shift it, we've mentioned a little bit about acting categories, but just to go back to those and starting with lead actor. So in a drama series, is there somebody who's clearly out front on your ballot?
Yeah, I think Kevin Spacey has a couple SAGs at this point. I think he's just had bad timing. You know, he went up against the final season of Breaking Bad, then it was the final season of Mad Men. This year he doesn't have that. I think he could get beaten by Rami Malek. We don't actually know how big Mr. Robot's going to be yet, but if it does, get nominations across the board, then he's a cool person to vote for since he's young and Egyptian and unknown.
And who else do you sort of see in that lineup? Do you Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, or?
Yeah, I've got him. I think even if Better Call Saul doesn't get anything, it'll still get him and Jonathan Banks in. Mm-hmm. And I've got the two guys from Billions. I noticed a lot of people don't have Damian Lewis, but he was nominated for Wolf Hall last year.
Yes, I thought that to me was very telling about just how well regarded he is, and still kind of coasting on that Homeland acclaim. And now with Billions, and I think with Billions, it's interesting because Paul Giamatti is his co-star. I always think that to me that shows like a tennis match, and really Giamatti can only be as good as he is because of Damian Lewis. I think
that's fair.
And then right now on our odds, we've got Aaron Paul getting nominated for The Path, but who do you have Clive Owen getting in, or for the Nick?
No, he didn't get in last year. Didn't get nominated at SAG. I don't know.
So who rounds out your? Oh, and sorry, at number 5 in between Lewis and Giamatti is Matthew Rhys for The Americans, finally getting a nomination according to our odds. But what do you where do you fall on that? Who rounds out your list?
Yeah, let's see here. Who do I have?
And it could change. It's late June.
I've got Bobby Cannavale. So.
Oh, okay, for a kid.
I've moved him down to 6th, but again, HBO. I never want to discount HBO, and he's beloved.
But they do. But even with the show being canceled.
Yeah, I don't know. It was canceled in the middle of voting, so maybe people had already voted.
Right.
Yeah, that one I'm unsure about.
And then who else is on your list?
Then I've got the 2 Billions guys, Rami Malek, Bob Odenkirk, and Kevin Spacey.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then over on drama actress, who do you think is sort of? Do you think Viola Davis is sort of in front to get her bookend from last year, or Robin Wright? Where are you right now?
Yeah, I just assumed that it'd be Viola Davis because she wins SAG, and now they have the same voting. Like they just mark one. It's just popular vote. But I like what people in the forum have been saying about how it'll actually be Robin Wright, just because maybe Viola Davis was able to win based off the ranked ballot, where people, they vote for the shows that they watch, then they vote for the people they know. So she's always going to be, in the top 3 or so.
Right.
Whereas this year, like, are you really going to vote Viola Davis if you've never seen her show? Whereas, like, all her second place votes might disappear. Whereas Robin Wright, people are obviously watching House of Cards. So
right. And then our odds have Juliana Margulies in 3rd. I mean, strongly in 3rd. Very kind of neck and neck with them. And I don't know. I think it's going to be one. I'm tempted to put her there to win. I think right now I can't even remember. I'm guessing I have Robin Wright. And then it's interesting looking at our list. Claire Danes, I expect you think she'll be back, right, for Homeland?
Yeah.
Taraji Henson's on the list. I'm skipping over a couple of names here, but just to tell you that, so Carrie Coon right now is in 5th place. Now you love The Leftovers. You're very passionately about it. Are you expecting her to be nominated?
I thought she'd get nominated last year, actually, because they sent out the DVD of The Leftovers, and they had 2 episodes, episode 6 and episode 9. Episode 6 is the one where she's in, every shot almost for the whole hour. So I thought voters will say, oh, look, a new HBO show, better pop at the DVD. And then, there's this person taking over the screen for an hour and she's in supporting actress. So I thought that she would be able to sneak in there. She didn't. This year, I'm skeptical of The Leftovers because of last year. And I also don't know what she's doing in lead. So I don't have her in.
Okay. I mean, but didn't she win at Critics' Choice? And did she win in lead or supporting?
Yeah, she won in lead there too.
So that's why. I mean, how do you explain to the actress, when she can point to hey, look, this trophy says I'm a lead, Though I suppose it's the Patricia Arquette argument. I know there'd been some talk with Boyhood. Should she go lead or supporting? And my take on it was, well, you can either maybe get a lead nomination or you can win a supporting actress Oscar. Which do you want? Yeah. So she wisely went supporting.
I guess it's that they submitted so many of their actresses in supporting. Even the ones who are eligible for guest, everybody is in supporting. So
it's interesting on our list that the 7th place is Tatiana Maslany from Orphan Black, who I guess we all were surprised to see her last year, but now I almost feel like I'll be surprised if she comes back.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because on the one hand, if people see that performance, then maybe they just think, okay, I'll just vote for her from now on.
Yeah. But
I don't know. It's so competitive. I see that you have the Outlander, Katrina Balfe.
Thank you. I was going to say, I might be predicting her, but I wasn't about to try and pronounce her name. So I'm so glad you did. I, again, just think and it could, I mean, there's a long time between now and July 14th, but right now it feels like Stars has done such a good job of putting her out there and the show. And it's airing, I do think the airing new episodes during voting, even if you weren't, I mean, there was so much being written about Outlander during voting that it just kind of, you might have just popped in a DVD to see. And I do think on the, you know, whether it's the Motion Picture or TV Academy, I mean, there are voters of a certain age, and Outlander is old-fashioned television. It's lushly romantic, sort of these big sweeping storylines. I don't know. I think that's sort of on my, we also have a dream ballot, and I guess it's, my dream ballot is leaking over to the real one. So I'm not wholly convinced I'll stick with her up until the 14th, but right now, and I guess it's because I sort of think, you know, Michelle Dockery, I'm looking down this list, and even Kerry Russell. I just think with Kerry Russell, and I love The Americans, but there's something so gosh darn unlikable about her character that I think that people can't separate, like people like me can't separate between the actress and the character. And so I kind of feel like she just, and I think she can't sort of overcome that bias. And then again, dopey people like me who still look at her as Felicity. So, you know, it's not fair, but I think that of the two, I think Matthew Rhys is more likely to be nominated. Though having said that, I think she just got a TCA nomination for individual performance. So what about, just as we wrap this up, and we will do comedy separately, whether it's Critics' Choice or the TCA nominations, not so much a correlation, but does it give like people permission to vote for certain shows or not? Like, how do you sort of match the critics with the Emmy voters?
I think I just assume that there's no correlation. I mean, last year the Americans won Critics' Choice, it won TCA, and it didn't get in. I mean, they've awarded, or the Critics' Choice has awarded Community, TCA gave so many nominations to Empire last year. I actually thought that would be permission to the Emmys, because I had not bought into the Empire argument at all. I thought that this is not what the Emmys are going to go for. And then TCA nominated for everything. So I thought, okay, well, even if they're on board. So I think that kind of goes to show how little influence they have.
Okay. Well, listen, let's wrap this up because we have talked for almost an hour, and anyone that's still watching, we're going to talk about, no, it was all, at least half of it, the stuff you were saying was interesting. So, but we'll talk about comedy in a separate podcast, and then they can really know how to fill out their ballots. Okay.
See you, Paul.